It's really good to see all of you here. I know it's been a really long week and everyone's head is full, so we really appreciate to see all your faces here and engaging with us. I have to acknowledge my colleague Dr. Renzo Guinto here from Healthcare Without Harm because he inspired the topic, Reimagine Accountability. And what we need to understand is often accountability is limited to addressing those symptoms. So there's these back and forth going on all the time, and I want us to reimagine accountability as broader than that. It is not just a transaction between right and wrong, good and bad, compliant and non-compliant. It is a deeper issue than that. So I want us to kind of move from there. The way that I address this issue of, are we addressing the symptom or the cause through our policy, and how are we accountable to it? I often look back to the 1964 Civil Rights Act in the United States, which technically outlawed all forms of discrimination. And yet today we know that racism is the most challenging issue in the United States. We have yet to address this at the root cause level. So I tend to call this the accountability paradox, which I get to that in a second. I want to ask you for a minute, what is the problem that COP21 is trying to solve? Yell it out. What is the problem? Say it again.
The symptom is the emission.
The symptom is the emission. What is the problem that COP21 is trying to solve? Say it again. Climate change. Is that the root cause of something, or is that a symptom? It's lifestyle. Is COP21 trying to address a lifestyle? Relationship between the humans and the biosphere do you think the agreement is going to get us there to change that relationship? You see, these are very deep issues, and too often I feel like in these spaces we don't spend enough time addressing those root causes. What is the community that we want to live in? What is the planet that we want to leave for our future? Those are questions that sometimes get glossed over, or perhaps shown in a nice video and then going on to the negotiation of the symptoms. What I always find problematic in politics is that we often look for the cause or the symptom so that we can assign blame. It becomes a blame game rather than addressing the true ethical and moral considerations of climate change. And again, that's what I call the accountability paradox. As Sylvia mentioned, we have to address the question of accountability for what? Is it only pointing fingers at one another and saying, you didn't mitigate enough, you should adapt more, you're too many emissions? Or is it that we don't want to see our world in this state? I would like to make a provocative point that economic development should not be given impunity in the climate change agreement. It should not get impunity. If we are harming the planet and the health of our people, why are we giving ascendancy to economic growth? These are conversations at the ethical level. That's why I say it's a moral imperative to address climate change. Sylvia also asked the question, accountable to who? This is another fundamental question that we need to create spaces to have a discourse on this. Is it just this relationship about blaming? Or is it, as Sylvia mentioned, a deeper understanding and reflection of our contribution, whether our is individual, community, or institution, to climate change? So when I say reimagine accountability, I mean redefine it. We have all the science that we need. We have experts all over the world. This is not a technical issue. Addressing climate change is a moral imperative. And if we are bickering in the finer points of the law, we're actually missing the full point. If our base, if the principles and the values were united in a vision, wouldn't the language follow suit? I know that we often like to talk about financing, but is really money the answer? Oftentimes, development discourses tend to focus on extreme poverty. We have yet to address extreme wealth. We don't know how to address extreme wealth because somehow secretly all of us want to be Bill Gates or Angelina Jolie. Somehow we do not challenge our concepts of success. So working on a project in development, you think, ooh, sustainable development. We will have public transit, no more cars in this particular city, name a city. And then we realize, no, the individual members in that city think you're ostracizing them because they want a car, because their whole life they've been working to get out of poverty to have a car because that is a symbol of success and development. That is not going to help us get to the addressing of climate change at that ethical level. We need to address extreme wealth in our development discourses. The principles of this type of accountability, that deep accountability that I would like us to reimagine, are the principles that I've been hearing in the green zone. The principle of resilience reframed, not as bouncing back, doing the same old thing, but as the Kresge Foundation defined, as a way to bounce forward. There should not be a false dichotomy between adaptation and mitigation and deep democracy. That's a false trichotomy, I guess. We need to ensure adaptation plus mitigation plus deep democracy, which embeds equity and justice within it. That is true resilience, and I've heard that here. In global health, we look at sustainability very differently, and I would like to offer the definition of sustainability through a health frame, and that is being accountable for prevention of harm to the planet and to the people. That is a fundamentally different understanding of our world than a trade-off between present and future. Because that is an economic ascendancy, whereas preventing harm has a deeper response and responsibility towards our planet and to one another. The need to cultivate action in multi-sector, interdisciplinary, and cross-movement spaces. Yesterday I went to a fantastic panel on fracking, and I was wondering the entire time whether the fracking movement and the coal movement, the anti-fracking and anti-coal movements, were talking to one another. I was wondering where those spaces are, where these movements can collaborate. We need to expand our understanding of human nature. We are not just competitive animals. I don't know why we are reinforcing and perpetuating this paradigm, but research has shown over and over and over and over again that we have just as much capacity for reciprocity, cooperation, altruism, compassion. Where are we cultivating those? Where are we cultivating the understanding that humanity is much broader than everybody rushing to be Bill Gates? Finally, research is also showing that supporting regional and local economic systems is conducive to a resilient world and resilient communities. As Sylvia alluded to, I invite you to really think about the accountability as accountability to one another. Friends, I do not want to look in the eyes of someone from a vulnerable state whose island is disappearing and say, we failed. Thank you.